What is up, duelist? YCS Vancouver just happened. I'm back home, and even though I didn't do that well, I decided to show you the deck I brought to the tournament and just do a little like recap of the tournament, what happened, why I didn't perform that well, unfortunately, and yeah, what my thoughts were behind my deck and my deck choice. So, as you can see, I played Mitsurugi Raizo. Um, there's been a couple like I've never played that version of the deck in a tournament. In Providence, I played Mitsu Raizel Fiendsmith, but I never played like actual Mitsu Raizel because I never really liked it. For this event specifically, I thought, and I still think it was a great pick. As far as I know, the first place after Swiss also played Mitsurugi Raizel. Um, but yeah, he mainly, as soon as I can recall, like as far as I can recall, he said in his profile he just didn't test too much. Um, yeah, which does not justify that his deck choice is the right choice, like in general, but based on results, you can see the deck can still perform very, very well. So during my preparation, I started by looking to all the new decks, looking to Draco Tail, Vanquish Soul, K9, of course, like big K9 package, small K9 package. I looked into Yummy, different versions. I also looked into Fiendsmith Yummy, Snake Eye Yummies, of course. But never nothing just like every deck had its problems, and no deck just felt like it was complete. In my opinion. Um, and also because of some private reasons, the closer it got to the tournament, I didn't prepare as much as I wanted to anymore. So what happened is during my flight to Vancouver, my very good friend Kevin, shout out to you, and me were working on this deck. We were trying to figure out what deck we want to bring to the tournament, and we kind of came to the conclusion that Raigeki is a hell of a card. Like, I also noticed during my prep, in almost every side deck, I want to include Raigeki, and every time I draw it, I was so happy. Like, I want to include at least one to search it with Thrust, but then I went up to three Raigekis at some point. Even in my Snake Eye videos, Snake Eye Yummy videos, you can see that I'm siding three Raigekis. Because just like this board wipe feels so strong into many decks right now. It deals with a lot of interruptions because except for Crystron K9, there hasn't really been any like Omni Negate set up. Of course, there's Herald and Yummy, but they usually, especially if they start a in school, obviously, they don't set up Herald in their own turn. You shouldn't do that anyways, because yeah, it just plays so hard into a top deck imperm, and then you just trade your Herald with an imperm, which is not a thing you want to do actually. Um, yeah, so for me it was either like for me it was Crystron K9 for a long time. Like I was very or a long time, a couple of days. I was very set on that deck, but during my flight, we worked on this deck together. Like we played test and everything, and I just felt like not only do I want to play the Rizel cards one last time, but also this deck just feels complete, and this deck just really feels like it's it does what it wants to do so well, and it can keep up with the consistency of Yummy. In this version, it can keep up with the non-engine of almost all the decks you need to play a high non-engine count. It We reduced the bricks to the least amount of possible, at least amount possible. Its versatility is so big, and it has like many different pushes. The extra deck is like just a toolbox, and it can side pretty well. So yeah, let's just hop into the deck real quick. As I said, we try to max out the starters as much as we can. So you can see like all these six good names. Then we have Bonfire 7, Prosperity 8, two Tachyons 10, 13 with the Habakiris, 14 with the Aramasa, and quote unquote 17 with the Prayers. If you don't play Night Sword Serpent and Kusanagi, Prayers is not a one card starter in terms of it bridges into Rizel engine, but any normal summon um, does it. And Never mind. uh, if you just prayers in addition to your like Rizal card you already have, it just feels so strong. Um, so it's like somewhat of an extender, you could say. I don't know what happens. Like I connect my phone to this, so it always just like connected to Rico's MacBook Air, and then it just keeps connecting. Yeah, never mind. Anyways, um, yeah. So if you have prayers itself, what it does, and I think that's good. Like if you have only prayers, that means you have 2 to 3 non-engine cards. Let's say you have one brick, 3 non-engines, and the prayers, which is a reasonable hand. You can set up the Dynamondo with the prayers. So you have the Murakumo board wipe, Murakumo discard as an interruption, and you have the 3 non-engine cards, which means you're not really in a bad spot, in my opinion. And if you pair the prayers with some cards like yeah, like Saji, it works pretty well again. So it is not a dead card, um, but it is not a one card starter that does everything if it would be if you played a Night Sword Servant into Kusanagi. For our main combo, like to make Habakiri work, you need 2 level 4 Mitsurugis. And of course, you want to play Zaji and the Aramaza because Aramaza gives you Habakiri and therefore is another starter. Um, so yeah, that is like the main reason behind the main goal of the deck, just to have the consistency as high as possible with the least amount of bricks. Um, you see, there's only 2 7 Tachyon, and this is something I decided because we have the number of 17 one-card starters. That means if like I do count prayers as a one-card starter because it is a single card that achieves some place and achieves an eruption. So to me, that is a starter. Um, so you have 17 cards that guarantee you a play, and in 40 cards, that is 94.88, like roughly 95% chance of seeing one in your opening hand, and the expected amount is 2.15, if I'm not mistaken, or 2.11, something like that. So you should almost guaranteed have 2 starters in your opening hand. That means you don't necessarily need the third Tachyon, and we cut it just to have more non-engine, because if you as you see down there, there's 20 there's 18 non-engine cards. There's 16 hand traps and the 2 droplets. And yeah, the Charmies, we wanted to include the Charmies and like somewhat of a higher Charmy count with the 2 Perulias as well in the main deck, even though Perulia is not great in this format. It has some decks that is annoying to play into the Perulia, like mainly for Vanquish Canine. And Crystron also, like during testing, I figured sometimes it just feels weird if they drop a Perulia, because you have to summon from your hand a couple times, sometimes with some hands. And yeah, even if you go to your turn against Vanquish Canine, and I expected to play a lot of Vanquish Canine, you can drop it in your turn as a 6th card, and you can still get like 1, maybe 2 draws of it. Um, yeah. Speaking about what we expected, this non-engine is very targeted with the against like the many nips against Yummy, because I feel like Nip and another hand trap paired is very strong against Yummy, or like a droplet paired. As well as very good against Mega Soul Canine. These 2 decks are the decks I focused the most on because I expected to play against the most amount of those decks, which ended up being very right. I played against three Yummies and 0 Vanquish Soul, but Kevin played against, I think, like 4 Vanquish Soul. So we were somewhat right with our expectations. Yeah, so that is why we chose this non-engine. And also because I expected personally like the most amount of Yummy in the format. Like to play against the most mainly Yummy, I wanted to play like the Murakumo in your main deck because, as I said, Raigeki is a hell of a card in my opinion, and having an in-engine Raigeki, searchable Raigeki, and Raigeki in your opponent's turn seems like a no-brainer to me. Yeah, the Ghost Ogres. This could be Bell, but I think Ghost Ogre is better because this deck struggles if the Vanquish Soul Trap resolves, and it does not struggle too much against Yummy. While Bell hits Yummy more than it hits Vanquish Soul, and Ogre can hit the field spell, so they cannot get to the trap unless they Jiaolong search it. But yeah, I think at that point you're just in a bad spot anyways, and the Bell doesn't help you at all, of course. So that is it for the main deck. Um, Also, another thing you notice, of course, as I said, I didn't only cut the Night Sword Serpent and Kusanagi, I also put Star in the side deck. The reason of this is Star, in my opinion, is a card that plays very well around Droll. Droll is a card that I expected to be in most people's side deck and not the main deck. So there's no reason for me to main deck it because I don't really have to go Star as soon as possible and just play around the Droll because I expect Droll in every main deck as it was the case pre Justice Hunters. Um, so I put it to the side there because the only time you really want to play around Droll or beat Droll is post side deck, I think. So it is like a going first card that we cut to play more non-engine, and like non-engines technically it's like with the nib, searchable nib even, and except like every non-engine except the Jarmies are also like somewhat good cards to draw going first because it just is an addition to your end board. And yeah, so the Star slot of the deck is pretty much, I think in the end we cut Star to play Droplets because Droplet and X are like such great board breakers, and to be able to hand trap them, maybe charm them, keep them on a half board, and then have either X or Droplet or they both combined, like X and Droplet. I think I don't have to tell you how broken this is. If you have never experienced that, please do so before the ban list drops because that's something I'm gonna miss, to be honest. Yeah, the side deck consists of mainly a couple going first cards, as I said, with the Star, the 3 power spells. Also, of the speaking of the power spells, I don't think Talents is very strong in this deck going second because it has not like you can steal a body, you can look in your opponent's hand, you can draw. That's everything okay. I mean, you can draw it to another push. You can look the like search your hand for a hand trap. You can steal to go for a game, but it's not like as good as it is in other decks where you can like draw some very important push, like draw another engine if you play like Fiendsmith in addition to these 2 engines, for example. You can draw a Fiendsmith card, you can draw Engraver that like gives you an entirely other push. Or if you steal the body, you can just link it off and go into link plays, which is not possible in this deck. Or look at the hand, because you lose to one specific card, you really lose to a nib or whatever. Um, yeah, that is why we include it in the side deck. And also, Talent seems very strong against Troll, again, because Troll has to be activated in the main phase. And Talents, the Droll will, as I said, mainly come in post side. So, yeah. Then the Crossout and the Call By, I think Kevin played the same list as I did. Especially, except from he played only 2 nib and he put the Crossout in the main deck. I prefer to have a nib, to be honest, even though crossouting a Fuva in this deck sounds very nice. And maybe sometimes I missed it, but in the end, I feel like if you have a nib, the current decks they don't play that well around nib and a half board, so you can just keep the nib if they fool you and just go maybe detonator, give him 1 or 2 draws if it depends what you start with, or just go something else that has like some little interruptions and then have the nib as a backup, which seems strong. But post side, of course, you want to hit the Fuba loss because that card destroys your deck. As well as, of course, Perulia, but Perulia is not that big of an issue as Fuba loss is, in my opinion. Depends on what you start with, of course, again. Then call by, of course, also is post side to hit the relevant hand traps. And the three judgments. Uh, why judgment over other solemns? I'm a big fan of solemn warning personally, but I do expect a lot of board breakers in this format, especially post side and like lightning storm, harpies, and you don't really want to lose your solemn combined with your other interruptions to one single card of those. So you would have the judgment to negate things like these and also be able to like negate some key plays. Negating the normal summon against Vanquish Soul sometimes can be very, very crucial. Negating the Yummy Synchro can be crucial. Negating one of the fusion spells against Rico Tail can be crucial. So yeah, Judgment, like, it never really disappoints. It doesn't outperform as Warning did, like a couple some time ago. But Warning just overperformed there. But Judgment is like, you get what you expect basically, and yeah, it's just like another added on negate in to your end board, which is fine. Then I also played the draw because I wanted to respect this deck. I wanted to have the draw for a couple other matchups like Vanquish Soul can be nice against Christian. It actually hurts. Yeah, you just want to have another hand trap next to the draw if you use it against Christian, because otherwise you're gonna get smashed and it's not a fun experience. Fortunately, it never happened to me again in this tournament. And last but not least, Alancia mandatory against Malice. Funny enough, Malice was my only was the loss that kicked me out of the tournament, because game 2 I bricked on the Lancias. I had like 2 Lancias and a Hash Blossom where I think I only had Habakiri in hand, so I went Habakiri Zaji, he ashed the Zaji, and I just had to pass. And Lancia did make me survive, did help me survive, but they summoned Magnamut and just kept attacking. Because I didn't want to Lancia on Magnamut because it was in an open game state. He had to Magnamut, I think, Zaji. So I'd rather ash it so he does not get any other card, and I keep the Lancia for if he actually draws something. But I didn't draw Engine, so it never mattered. Yeah, the extra deck is very, very simple. I think there's like 1 or 2 flag spots. The Eclipse Twins is something you can technically only play at 1. The second one came up a couple times to me. And I was very happy to have it. The Link slot is something that can also be Donner. I think it should be Donner, to be honest. Even though it doesn't, like, it makes this card much worse because it cannot end on Dynamondo anymore. But Donner, I feel like, works just so much better with the Nib, and I think that you play Nib, and there's so much Nib in the format that you actually want to have the Donner in case you get nipped. Because the Nib token then just sits there if you don't really have a way to out it or can crash it or whatever. And even the Nib itself kind of conflicts sometimes. Of course, you can summon the Nib token in attack, but against Yummy, sometimes the Nib token just does not have enough attack, so you cannot even crash your Nib into it. You're stuck with the X in your hand, so that just kind of sucks. Yeah, that was it for the deck list. I was very, very happy with the deck idea. I was very, very unhappy how the deck treated me. Round 1 it started. I lost the die roll. I opened no hand traps. He played Fiendsmith Mitsu, and he just full comboed me with Trap in the main deck and even Droll in the main deck. That just completely threw me off. Then game 2 I went first. I didn't draw a single engine card, so I just had to pass and watch him kill me. Same happened against like in round 6. I think it was around 6. Yeah, I threw my phone on the bed, so I can't really see what round it was. Never mind. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so I did break, I think, game 2. Yeah, I lost game 1 to Yummy because I didn't really have a way to stop it. I think I had a single Ash Blossom. I ashed the Cupsy, or like Ash. No, I think I ashed Obedient School. He flipped the second one. Game was basically over because I didn't have enough pushes. And game two, I went first. I passed again after no cards, no play. And lost because of that. And against Malice, round eight. It was like Malice with a K9 engine, or like at least Izuna and Lupis. I don't know how much else he played. I think it was just that. Um, yeah, he was a very nice guy. Um, and he just sacked me. That's what Malice does. As I said, I got game one. I was able to play through some hand traps, some interruptions. Game two, I lost because, as I said, I bricked on my Lancias, and game three, I went first. I think, yeah, I think he just hand trapped me like two or three times. I had to keep my board. No, 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 that's not true. He Perulia'd me. I had to give him some plays. I think I even figured out a line that plays better into Perulia. That like just ends on detonator if I know it's Malice, and does not like it gives him one or I think it gives him two draws, but he had to use one draw like one Ash Blossom on the normal summon ice, so it trades with the card anyways. I have to go detonator with two materials. I think I had a judgment as well. I decided to keep playing. Got punished by it a lot, and therefore, yeah, he was even able to throw a second Puruli at me, and I just didn't summon anything anymore. I think I set two cards and passed just to survive. One of them was a judgment, but he was able to Valon, and yeah, just really sack me. Happens. That's Yu-Gi-Oh. Um, as I said, I was very happy with the deck. I think if there's this YCS again tomorrow, I would play the exact same list. Maybe switch the Donner for Dynamondo, but I'm very, very convinced by this deck playing so well into the Yami. And yeah, there's gonna be a ton of Yami out there. Therefore, better be prepared for it and better choose a deck that plays very well into it. Yeah. If you have any questions about the deck, let me know. If you have anything else to add, or just want to say something nice, leave it down in the comments. And yeah, see you guys in the next one.